Hello, LinkedIn Live audience, and welcome to this month's live panel debate. I'll be your host, Clare Muscutt, and I'm the very proud founder of Women in CX, the world's first online membership community for women in customer experience. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you to the sponsor of today's panel and for all of our digital events in this month, which is Quick. And for anyone who's not familiar, Quick is a leading conversational CX platform that drives two-way conversations to deliver better experiences for people and brands by harnessing generative AI and the power of large language models, or LLMs, as you're going to hear more about, no doubt, in our panel today, like ChatGPT. Quick automates and enables enterprises to connect with their customers across varied messaging channels, including SMS and text messaging, Apple's Messages for Business, Google's Business Messages, web chat, WhatsApp, and more in more than 170 languages. So I'd just like to say again, a huge thank you to Quick for supporting women in CX and helping us put women where they belong at the centre of conversations on CX and AI. And before I introduce today's topic and my esteemed guests, I'd love to get the chat started, as always. So, audience, please let us know, where in the world are you joining us from today? And while we're waiting for a few more people to join, we've got over 600 people registered today. It's amazing. In the background, I just wanted to give a shout out to my amazing team supporting the live stream. We've got Meg, who's coordinating everything backstage, and Harley, say hi, Harley, who's supporting you in the chat. Harley's going to be asking you the same questions we're going to be asking the panel. So please do get involved and share your thoughts on the conversation too. But just to tell you a little bit more about Women in CX and what we do, just over 2 years ago on International Women's Day, Women in CX first launched with a small group of founding members and has since grown into a community of more than 8,500 members, sponsors, and supporters across the globe. The goals of our organisation are to promote diversity, equity and inclusion within the CX and technology industry and create opportunities for women's networking, learning, mentorship and support, and to advance the field of CX by amplifying voices of women. And the ones that you're going to hear today are just a fantastic example of that. In a space where over 70% of the frontline workforce are women, but only 30% make it into entry-level management, we've got some serious work to do. But if you're wondering where all of this began, we actually started in the pandemic lockdowns of 2020 as a platform for women to have real talk conversations about customer experience and the issues women face in and out of the workplace. And a community sprung up around that show on social media, and the response helped us to identify a real need for something more organised to enable women across the world to connect with and support one another. So we built an online membership community as a safe space for women from diverse backgrounds to all come together and support one another, and launched on International Women's Day 2021. But since then, we've expanded into an offline community with events and conferences led by our members being held in locations like London, Barcelona, Dubai, Dublin, Toronto, New York, San Francisco, Amsterdam, Finland, Romania, Saudi Arabia, and even the Caribbean. By harnessing the power of female collaboration and sharing our challenges and experiences and learning from one another, our members achieving so much more than they ever could do alone. But the jewel in our crown is known as the Inner Circle, a private paid members only community where we co-designed it with our community members to become a place where we unite women across the globe to collaborate, inspire one another and support one another on the path to CX mastery. And I do apologise, my voice is a bit hoarse today. With access to a private social media network, exclusive networking events, guest webinars, member-led masterclasses and case studies, but there's a whole resource library of exclusive content to help our members flourish both personally and professionally. This is the place to be if you're looking to accelerate your career, ladies. This year, we've launched a whole host of exclusive Inner Circle features, including a mentoring scheme to help women find or become their dream mentor, a member directory to connect women with subject matter experts who can help them solve challenges, a regular CX news roundup focusing on the latest trends and hot topics in CX, and an even approved list of coaches to support women to help them achieve their goals. And they've all been experiencing huge success in connecting Inner Circle members with opportunities for employed work, consulting, public speaking, content collaborations, and raising their profiles through our own and partner media channels, including the Women in CX podcast, CX Today, My Customer, and CX Magazine. Our community is now flooded with success stories of promotions, pay rises, new jobs, new businesses, and with Wix courses opening really soon, we can't wait to see what our community Inner Circle members achieve next. And our membership is open to applications now. So if you'd like to apply to join the waitlist, Harley's just pasted the link in the chat, and I'd absolutely love to see you there. And for anyone who is facing social or economic barriers, we also offer a social pricing model and free scholarship places in the spirit of true equality. So we are on a mission to amplify the voices of women in our industry, hence taking what was previously a roundtable discussion inside the community live to you, our audience here on LinkedIn today. And just as a reminder, today our Women in CX panel are going to be discussing supercharging customer experience with AI, the challenges, breakthroughs, and the road ahead. But before we start, let's have a little look in the chat and see who's here. Wow, so many people. So let's say hi to Adri in Barcelona. Oh, we've got Erin, Shari, Lama. Oh, Daphne. Oh, hello, someone in Hamburg. That sounds cool. Nigeria, Prague. Ivana and Faith, welcome. Victoria in Litchfield. Adriana Gonzalez in Costa Rica. Wow, Virginia in Chicago. Lorene in London. Natalie in Buenos Aires. I'm going to be there next week. Someone from Vienna. Pete in Valencia. Katri in Barcelona. Wow. Danielle in Idaho. Daphne's in Nashville. Maria in Liverpool. Mary in Nairobi. Megan in Bermuda. That's the first time I've ever had anyone from Bermuda. Liana in Chicago. Anna Maya. Hi, Anna Maya in Helsinki. Natalie in Chile. Wow. Funda. Hi, Funda in St. Louis. Amy in Tampa Bay. Wow. This is going to take a long time if I read everybody today. Achana in Bangalore. Alexander in Paris. Shari in New York. Wow, I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop there, but it just keeps on going. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for getting involved already. Wow, I'm actually, my mind is blown. What a wonderful international community that's shown up to hear this panel today. So we best get started with the panel, otherwise we're going to run out of time. So just to set the scene for everybody, AI, excuse me, has brought a seismic shift in the world of customer experience, reshaping how businesses connect with customers and empower employees. As AI-powered tools and solutions continue to shift and transform the CX landscape, there's no shortage of innovative ways in which AI could be integrated into CX, including automation, data analytics, customer service, personalization, and even now journey mapping. But is digitizing everything really the right approach? The use of AI-powered chatbots, predictive analytics, personalization, and voice assistance has offered unparalleled opportunities for businesses to serve their customers 24/7 and tailor their offerings to individual needs, but few have actually managed to leverage AI to its full potential yet. With the mainstreaming of a large language model such as OpenAI's ChatGPT-4, the possibility for achieving augmented human interactions closer than ever before. But with these opportunities come challenges such as data privacy and security, the potential for AI bias, the fine line between personalization and intrusiveness, and ensuring technology is employed as a means to a human end. And that's something I'm super passionate about talking about. As customer experience leaders here today, we understand the importance of maintaining the human touch in an increasingly automated world. But exactly how to influence the outcome is something that I can assure you everybody is struggling with. So one big question, I'm going to throw this out to the audience already. So I'd love you to tell us in the chat, how are you feeling about AI right now? Do you think it's an enabler or a distraction for CX leaders? Just comment enabler or distraction in the chat, and we'll get a bit of a feel for how everyone's feeling at the start of this conversation. So today our debate is going to be a golden opportunity for anyone who wants to learn more about the cutting edge ways in which AI is influencing CX and how to navigate the challenges that come with it. Central to our discussion, of course, will be the necessity can't say that word, necessity of maintaining the human touch amidst the rise of automation. And it's this emphasis on empathy, understanding and connection that we all know really does breathe life into technology and make any advancements in tech truly meaningful. So I think today this vital discussion stands out as a testament to the power of diverse voices and the inspiring women who are guiding the future of customer experience. So let's get ready to have this conversation. We're going to be sharing real world examples, sharing practical tips and advice that you can learn from and hopefully take away and apply immediately, as the panelists are going to be exploring the challenges they're facing, the businesses are facing, or what their customers are facing, to give their advice on how to recognize and overcome the typical barriers that you're going to be running into on the road to an AI-enabled future. So audience, we'd love you to get involved by commenting in the chat and asking questions, because the last 15 minutes of our conversation today is going to be dedicated to asking your questions to the panel. So please do fire away and do your best to get, and I'm sorry, I will do my best to ensure that you get involved in this conversation on the live stream. So without further ado, drum roll, please welcome on stage our CX queens for today: Natasha Dendeka, lead user researcher from Santander; Gemma Colby, Head of Customer Experience at First Central; Ejimi Ejerasole, the GM for EMEA Quick. I'm going to have to cough quickly. Excuse me. And the CCAS consultant and contact centre industry expert, Shamim Smiley. Hello, ladies. How are you?
Hello.
I think I'm a lot better than you by the sounds of it.
I know, I'm so sorry. Like, I just managed to get myself a cold, like right at the start of summer in England. Always the way. But wow, we got just saw that Adrian's appeared as well, and loads of people are saying enabler in the chat. A lot of people are saying it can be both, but some people are a little bit confused about whether or not it's one or the other. We've got some comments that are saying both depends, so we've got a bit of a feel for where everyone's at today, and I'm sure everybody's going to benefit from the conversation we're going to have today, to hopefully eliminate some of that confusion and see where each of the people who are tuned in today will be able to tap into your insights and knowledge. So let's get going with a round of intros, shall we, ladies? So I'm going to ask everybody the same question, and that's just to share a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and why you think AI is such an important topic for the CX industry. And I'm going to start with Natasha, because you're next on my screen.
Thanks, Claire. Hi, everyone. Really nice to see so many of you here from all over the world. So like the intro says, my name is Natasha Dendeka, and I am a lead user researcher at Santander. And I've been doing user research for coming up to 4 years across a wide range of industries. So public, private. I worked on some of the COVID stuff. I say stuff because that's the only way to refer to that period in our lives. And yeah, in terms of AI, I I think a few people on the call, I am incredibly skeptical about AI for reasons we'll get into, and I'm intrigued to see where it goes and kind of how quickly companies will adapt to its applications in kind of day-to-day business and enterprise.
Nice, very good. Thank you, Natasha. And Gemma, you're next up.
Hiya. So I'm Gemma. I'm Gemma Colby. I currently work at First Central Insurance as the head of customer experience. And I would say my background has been in a mix of industries, so in housing, and for the last 7 years in marketing, and now in insurance. So it's really interesting to see the perspective across the different industries. And in terms of AI, I think we're really at the start of the journey, and I think it's so important that we have these conversations now, because more and more we need to make sure that it is about the customer and our users, and making the changes based on what it is that they need, and not getting lost in we just need to do AI. So really excited for this conversation today. So I think there'll be lots for people to think about and take away.
Yeah, 100%. This is all about people, isn't it? Not about the technology itself. And I know, Shamim, you've got some very vocal thoughts on LinkedIn about your perspective. Let's tell the audience a little bit more about you and your point of view on why this is so important.
Okay. Hi there, everybody. My name is Shamim, and I'm based in the UK, in Chepstow, South Wales. And as a subject matter expert and consultant in CCaaS, which is contact center as a service, as well as the supporting technologies and operations, I've also partnered with many organizations to deliver successful transformation projects, a lot of which were leveraging contact center artificial intelligence. I'm also a contributing author for CMS Wire, which has 50,000 readers a month, which I'm really proud of. And my latest published article was all about transforming e-commerce with artificial intelligence and machine learning. So it's very apt for what we're going to talk about today. And I think this is a really important topic, because I would love us to look at it through the lens of reality and try not to succumb to the, I want to use the word hyperbole again, Claire, of either like, you know, of doom or gloom, and glory as well, because there seems to be two extremes out there at the moment. And just sort of ground it and center it back to, you know, make it relevant to what we do every single day.
Love it. Yeah, definitely a need for a much more balanced conversation, is it? Because it is just those extremes. And I love the fact that you're using the word hyperbole with me today. And Asia, welcome.
Hello. Thank you, Claire, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Excited to be here. So I'm Asia May Aramisali. In my current role, I am the GM of EMEA at Quick. And as Claire already mentioned, Quick is a gracious sponsor and host of today's webinar. And so in my day job, you know, I get to work with, you know, over 200 companies that are in varying, I would say, stages of maturity, to be quite honest, about using technology to help enhance the customer experience. And, you know, that's a lot of where my work has focused for almost the past 20 years now, is really helping enterprise brands think about the customer experience, not only the technology aspects, but also the people process components as well. And, you know, I'm obviously bullish on this. You know, our technology provides this solution. But I also say that, you know, since I have been on the, I would say, receiving side, you know, I have been a customer of these technologies as well. I spent a few years as managing director of customer experience for the New York Times, and I understand firsthand what, you know, reality means. And it's not ever only about the technology, right? And I think that there is a lot of hype right now around this. And yeah, I'd love to have the conversation of, you know, what is real, and maybe leave the audience with some very tangible next steps that they can take away as well.
Love it, love it. And we've got some amazing comments already in the chat, just in response to what you ladies were introducing there. Sonia saying, you know, first understand the customer and employee problems and fix the basics, and then see better ways to do it and how therefore AI can enhance. I've got Serta, who's popped in to say she thinks it's an enabler for sure, but so many people are confusing AI and ChatGPT. So there's more potential to do stuff when you know what you're doing and to be well informed. I can't see who this comment is from. It says a LinkedIn user, but CX has a lot to do with human-centeredness and feeling. So a question: will AI tackle the challenge of serving this part instead of only being able to surface info? And yeah, Katri has also said it represents an opportunity to help CX and even sales reps in routine tasks, as everyone knows, but the key from a company and business point of view is to build the key differentiators in the journey from the human angle from customers and to boost how CS can elevate that. Some very useful nuggets from the audience as well. I love these panel debates. So I'm going to just make sure we're kind of all at the same perspective on starting this conversation. And I'm going to ask Shamim how AI has transformed the experience landscape in recent years, and what are some of the key examples of its impacts? And I'm sure by the sounds of things, Shamim, you're going to give us a balanced view.
Well, obviously I'm biased with myself, so I think I'm going to say that. If we think back to the problems that we were trying to solve with AI, enhancing products, processes, and services, because AI on its own is, you know, not something you can do much with at all. It has to be with something else. It's not, you know, its own entity as such. The problems we're trying to solve are not so dissimilar to what we were talking about and have been talking about, trying to solve and address, you know, for the last 10 years. And I think historically it was all about providing self-service options. increasing availability, not constricted to 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, being, always on, always available, automations, integrations to CRMs and homegrown databases and to IVRs as well. So providing pretty basic functions, what we all would agree are basic functions, but those organizations should have nailed this many moons ago, yet we're still talking about it like it's the new problem on the street. And I think, some of the challenges were that resources were really intense. It was intensive on resources, time intensive, costly. And it's always been about doing more with less, reducing costs, improving the bottom line, increasing efficiencies across the organization. But I would say that the biggest transformation is how organizations, how we're leveraging AI, to excel the virtues of big data. So, with that, it's being used to disrupt and transform customer experiences more than it's ever done in the last 10 years, I would say.
Interesting. And Ejime, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree with Shamim. I think, companies are in, again, varying stages of maturity. I do think that it is quite disappointing with probably, how much time and resources have been invested in some of these projects that just didn't deliver, right? I think there's a few different dimensions in which we like to, think about where AI can be used in customer experience as well. I think, the most simplest and the oftentimes kind of easy to point to is the end user. So the end customer, let me say, right? So we have things like these chatbots that, again, have historically been behaving badly, but where we're seeing kind of real practical, I think, advancements is also on the agent experience side, right? So there's many users that can leverage and utilize this technology. And what we're seeing now, to Shamim, your point, leveraging big data to be able to make the agent experience better, help them in the routine tasks that they're doing, help them with dispositioning contacts, help them with summarizing contacts. And so we're seeing AI be applied in the same way that we all use, Gmail, for example, completing our sentences, right? So imagine an agent being able to do their work faster, hopefully have an even more positive experience using AI. So I also wanted to think about the different ways in which AI can show up in the customer journey and the customer experience, not only for the end customer.
So I think you both touched on one of the age-old issues, which is transformation generally, isn't it? And adoption of technology, full stop, and the barriers and challenges that historically, and I found a really interesting statistic that we all know the adage 70% of transformations fail. That's not changed in 2023, and that first came out in 2019. So there's definitely a lot of work to do. So I'm going to just bring Natasha into the conversation now to really just tell us a little bit more about what the main challenges organizations are facing with integrating customer experience, either into their integrating AI into their customer experience, especially from a user point of view or an adoption point of view. What are your thoughts, Natasha?
Thanks, Claire. So what I will say is, let's think about the example let's start with the example in the US. So there's an eating disorder helpline, National Eating Disorder Helpline, NEDA. And for whatever reason, let's pretend it's not about the workers unionizing, but then a few days later, the management board, they decided they were going to replace the volunteer service that were dealing with a lot of people with eating disorders. So that obviously covers a wide range of people, different ages, different demographics. And they were going to replace that with a chatbot that had been created by a scientific team at a university, which I can't remember. And it's going to be called Tessa. And it actually goes into effect tomorrow, actually. So now what's really interesting, so there's two things here for if we're thinking about it from both sides. So both from Erjume's perspective and from what I specialize in, which is from our users' perspective. So from an agent perspective, the organization have said that it's not so much to replace, it's more to offer a fuller service so they can help more people. And obviously the the model is based on loads of scientific data, so it technically should be able to provide good responses. And this has been further tested by the volunteers themselves. So the agents, as it were, they have been there to test the responses. And then on the flip side, the users can just go in and they will just get a series of set responses. And when this was tested, if anyone goes in and says things like, I hate my body, I don't understand, like I'm in a bad place, the chatbot is not able to respond in an adequate way, even though they have had input, they have had the scientific input, they have had the volunteer input. So this is a very classic, very current example of I'm just looking at your question, Sonia. Very clear example where I think there's a few more layers of things that potentially, in terms of cost and an implementation, that maybe isn't so much putting their users at the heart of the scenario. And when I read this example, I thought it was a really good way to look at this question, because at the end of the day, and the thing that I think everyone forgets, is that chatbots don't have empathy. Okay, they're not humans. They don't understand the situation. Okay, like they don't understand context, and majority of chatbots are not self-learning. So it's not like, not every chatbot is going to be like GPT-4 where it's self-learning and it can learn based on the questions that you give it. It will always, 8 times out of 10, depending on the organization, it will be something that has a set bank of responses and you have to go through as a user. So if we look at it from a user perspective, that is not an empathetic process. So if we're thinking of services where you are trying to contact customer service, and usually when you're in a chat service, it's usually something like, I'm looking for this item, I'm having trouble finding this thing. And end of the day, users just want to be able to complete their task and fulfill their task. And most of the time, unless if you have a very, very well written chatbot, it doesn't do the job, and actually users will end up leaving that process feeling more frustrated, and that is the association that they will have with your organization. It is not a coincidence that companies like Apple, Amazon, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, Samsung, Deutsche Bank, I've got a list here, Goldman Sachs, they've banned ChatGPT for internal use, mainly because some of these companies are building their own, but also because they don't trust it. It doesn't actually add value to the way that they do their services. So when we talk about integrating AI into customer experience, it's not just integrating it into customer experience. It's actually about
designing it.
It's actually about designing it and understanding, as always, what is the user need that it's trying to fulfill. Because actually, it's not fulfilling a user need, it's fulfilling a company need to cut costs, not a user need to have to be dealt with in an empathetic way.
Okay, so just to summarize that then, by saying that, or you're saying that the understanding user needs and responding to those with technological solutions is what will enable people to adopt, one of the reasons, technology more easily. And that secondarily, if you could summarize the second point, that would be
I'm so sorry, everyone.
And
I think
my ADHD just kicked in and my mind just like blank, so that's why I'm asking you to summarize.
No, it's fine. And I think the second thing is that, are you integrating it in the right place for your users?
Yes, integrating in the right place for your users. And I think it's that garbage in, garbage out, isn't it? So without the correct programming, the right knowledge base, the right responses, and then the learning capability, it's never actually going to be able to do that. So yeah, that was the summary of the second point.
Well, and a really fun thing is that in all of this, I never hear people talking about data cleaning. At the end of the day, it is a massive data set, and data sets need to be cleaned, they need to be maintained, they need to be tended to like a garden or a good relationship. And if you're not doing that, it is garbage in, garbage out, and no one talks about that.
Yeah, well, we just said it. So real talk conversations here with Women in CX. And Gemma, I know you've got a lot of experience in the another angle on this, which is one of the limitations, which is legacy systems and like the technological challenge of integrating AI into customer experience. Do you have any more thoughts on that?
I do. I just wanted to quickly go back to the point that Natasha was making around my experiences in conversational AI and messaging and chatbots. And one of the things that we did is the person that built the chatbot where I was based in, actually in both companies, was in the customer experience team. And we had somebody who developed into the role. And so there was a lot to learn. But the thing that made all the difference is I couldn't have found anybody that cared more about what the customer experience was. So at no point were we just building very transactional journeys. We were, saying this had to be a good experience for the customer. And that came in different forms. So in some cases, we were able to resolve a transactional thing. In other cases, we needed to make sure the route to a human was the quickest and slickest it could be. So I think that's really important, and you're exactly right. They aren't built that way, and that isn't what they're there to do. But you have to get the right people doing it to get as close as you can in terms of making that experience good. So in terms of the legacy tech and integration, with a lot of the transactional things, you do need to tap into other systems and to make sure that it's as seamless as it can be. And that was one of the challenges that we had, was that trying to tap into systems that have been around long before AI was a thing was really challenging. And so we had to challenge ourselves to say, well, how do we want to use this, and how can we make sure that the customer is still having a great experience, and how can it help our colleagues on the front line? Whether that's having a customer arrive with, the summary of their information so they don't have to repeat themselves in an easily digestible way. There's many things that you can do. And I think it's about looking at all of the players in the journey and understanding that, so that you can manage some of those, because, it won't be the only organization that has gone, oh, okay, we designed this long before we knew this was something, and that now we want them to talk to each other and make sense. So that was definitely something we had to look at, and then think about what we wanted it to look like in the future, so that when we were making decisions about changing that technology or upgrading it, that this was something that was considered, and that we could make the case overall to invest. Where I am now, it's very much more around looking at our customer insight and what that's telling us, and how we use AI to do that. And that's been really interesting, because off the back of that, that's quite actionable, and you can start to show the investment is worth it. Is worth that money that you spend.
And investing properly to do it right, isn't it? Rather than just, I suppose the business angle sometimes is just about a channel shift, isn't it? So some of this stuff, rather than, again, answering questions for humans and how you can enable them to, as to Natasha's point, achieve their goal, or to Eshma's point, empower and agents to be able to do more easily. I'm loving what's going on in the chat here. I've seen so many awesome comments pop up. We just have to say hi to Claire, who joined us a bit late, but I met her in Barcelona last week. And just an awesome comment from Anna Noak Schultz, who's definitely a leading expert in the digital experience world and in platform-based businesses. But yeah, thanks to everyone who keeps keeping on contributing to this conversation. It's absolutely awesome to have such an engaged audience and adding even more thoughts to this. I see we've got Ginger here as well. Hi, Ginger. Nice to see you. So just moving on then, so we talked about kind of the barriers and challenges. I'm sure the audience would love to hear about some good examples of when it's done well and it's done right. So Eshma, I know you've got some great case study examples. What are your thoughts on examples you could share where we have actually been able to achieve the trifecta of business and customer and agent experience?
Yeah, I mean, the case study, I mean, we have several, but I think some of what we've been discussing are the foundational elements that need to happen first, right? I don't want to put this in the perspective of like, oh, we added a bot and then things were amazing, right? I think the reality, to Natasha and Gemma's point, the reality is that it does take an underlying strategic organizational effort to make these things happen. It takes tactical things, to your point, Natasha, that a lot of people don't talk about, but like, oh, sorry, I think I just muted myself. I'm back.
Nope.
You have, sorry, it's my headset. And when I move my head, it tries to mute itself. But yeah.
I think it's the AI on the headset that's
I know. Talking about technology is going to have to do something funny with us, isn't it?
Something had to happen on this call.
But we'll bring Ejime back in when she's got a headset sorted out. But I suppose just in addition to that, so we've got kind of saying like there's this reality. Oh, she's ready. Oh, on mute.
Sorry. See, this is where technology doesn't always help because there's something wrong with my headset.
Prime example.
The example that I wanted to share was, they're a large retailer in the U.S., luxury jewelry, and they were looking for a way to, as they were shifting more content, more of their experience to digital, really be able to serve their customers on digital. So we helped them open the chat channel, obviously first step. And the next step was that because chat was now available, they were getting tons of customer inquiries on that channel. So they had a service and a sales team, but no way to delineate and understand what type of inquiry was coming in. So we started with a simple automation that would then help understand, what were you looking to do? Were you looking to ask a customer service question, or were you looking to shop? And that was sort of like V1, right? Let's route it to the right team so that customers wouldn't get frustrated when they were routed to the wrong team. So it really was to help the customer experience and to help get the customer to the right team that they needed. And then over time, once we had access to the right data and systems, we started to incorporate other elements that would do things even like help book an appointment in person at one of their store locations, because they were now opening tons of locations across the US. So, what we were able to do was to help save the team's time, help reduce the time it took to get a agent to a customer in a timely fashion, and then also while maintaining CSAT, right? So they had a kind of internal SLA of maintaining 85% customer satisfaction across their channels, and chat actually ended up being one of their most performative channels because it was just faster to get to a human. So again, very simple kind of like crawl, walk, run approach that we take with all of our customers, but something now that we've been able to build over time. They're now looking to incorporate large language models, so LLM capabilities. And I think, just a point on kind of like where we were maybe even a year ago to where we are now in this technology, like the pace at which ChatGPT, I think, really introduced so many of us to the technology. It actually is transformational, right? So we actually are now saying that like chatbots hopefully are dead, and that this new type of automation can actually hopefully deliver more of that promise of what the kind of first generation chatbots were supposed to deliver, right? So to your point, Natasha, like, yes, they're not empathetic, but they can be designed to sound more empathetic. And it really has to be in the right time, right? Like, I think the eating disorder hotline is a really sensitive kind of topic and sensitive subject to maybe be putting automation in front of, right? And I would say that if anything, you shouldn't leave a human only with a bot. You should have that escape latch where you can actually connect with another human, because again, these bots are not meant to handle 100% of the questions. They never will. And I don't think we should have the reality or the assumption that they should. So, being able to allow a human to talk to a human when needed is, to me, a core design aspect of designing these experiences as well.
Nice.
So, Claire, just off the back of, there was just something that I feel quite compelled to say. As a practitioner in this space, I think there's something for the people who are watching to not be afraid to challenge that assumption in the business that says this isn't just about the chat taking all of these conversations. It's about saying we need to figure out with our customers, with our users, where a chatbot works, or where doing something over chat, we're getting to a human works and is going to allow us to meet the needs of those customers. And if anything, if people take that away and challenge those assumptions in their business, that's going to make a really good impact. So I think that's quite important.
I'm giving you a high five through the screen. I'm sure loads of people would be agreeing with that in the chat, and that's a super nugget to take away in terms of something we can be more empowered to do in terms of influencing those conversations. So Natasha, back to you again. Just on that subject of designing these experiences that are integrated and human and built with the user need in mind. If you could envisage a future where like we do get this right, what would that look like?
I think that is such a great quote. There's a quote from a radiologist from Stanford, and the quote said is it's AI won't replace radiologists, but radiologists who use AI will replace those who don't.
Oh.
And I think that is I think that's how I look at it. So AI is not going away. I mean, there are people trying to halt the development for the next 6 months because it has grown exponentially out of control. And I do agree with that. And I think there are some comments about how it needs to be regulated. I think that I would like to see AI be more representative of the communities that it is purported to serve. So that means that's not the algorithm, right? That's the teams. So for me, the algorithm and AI, or AGI, as we're probably going to end up being in the next like 5 to 6 years, right? As it improves, I would like the teams to be more inclusive. And that would mean that the services would be, as Ejime says, more empathetic, because they would be designed with that empathy in mind. And also, organizations would be more strategic and understand that it's not a service that you tack on as like an extra thing. It's actually an integral part of the service delivery of your product. So you have designers, you have conversation designers, you have people like me in the room kind of saying, what's the tone of this AI? Like, is it talking to your customers? Is it even something as basic, which something we're all aware of? So, you know, the application on Amazon where if you like this, you'll like this. That is AI in one of its simplest forms. And most of us love that. It takes the stress out of what we're doing, of shopping and buying things for people. And I love that seamless integration of AI into our day-to-day life to make things easier for us. That's what I want for us in the future. So whether if it's us applying for a job, whether if it's diagnosing medical conditions, we're already doing all this stuff, like putting people out for parole, you know, from prison. Like AI is already doing this stuff, but I think we can make it so much better with a human element, instead of it just being done from the technology perspective. That's what I would like to see in the future.
No, here. And just to kind of dig a little bit deeper into one of the issues that you raised there, it's about it may be some hyperbole as well, but the issues around risk and data and that kind of thing. Ejime, I was going to ask you next about your thoughts on how we balance the benefits of AI-driven personalization with concerns about things like privacy, security, and data.
Yeah. So when we work with customers, you know, they have tons of questions around and concerns around using AI, using LLM technology, especially with the introduction of ChatGPT. And they're kind of like 3 buckets. So they want to make sure that the responses are accurate. So to your point, Natasha, now with these new technologies, they're not just canned responses. Like the AI is generating a response on its own. So you may not know exactly what it's generating. And there's 2 forms of that, right? It can hallucinate and actually generate something that's totally false, or it can actually just not have an answer because we didn't connect it to the appropriate data feed to give the right response, right? And so there are ways that you can design and put guardrails around making sure that it doesn't do those things. The next bucket of concerns is around data, privacy, and security. So a good example is ChatGPT. Anyone can go on now, log in, and start interacting with ChatGPT. But if you are an enterprise, if you are a brand that wants to leverage this technology, you probably should not, well, not probably, you definitely should not be using the open, kind of product that's available. So, companies like Quick are using the commercial grade APIs from OpenAI that do not then take your content and your data and plug it back into their LLM, right? I think Samsung was a famous example where some of their employees were kind of tinkering and there's a huge data breach. So you want to make sure that the platform and the APIs that you're using are commercial grade because they are SOC compliant and they follow some regulatory compliance that your organization will likely need to also follow. And then the last is around brand trust, safety, kind of tone of voice. We, want to make sure that the companies that we work with and are designing these solutions for feel confident that what we're representing is accurate of their tone of voice and accurate of their brand. We do know that there's some bad actors that are trying to prompt hack bots these days to make them say things and do things that are inappropriate. So again, designing for these, knowing ahead of time that that even exists so that you can sign against it, is what we always recommend that, you know, our customers do. So those kind of three broad categories are what we typically see with the risks and concerns around implementing, especially this new generation of AI that, you know, can generate great content, but also has some risks and limitations as well.
Right, and thank you for explaining a bit more of the technical parts of that. I learned a lot about that, and I'm just fascinated that like so many people are using ChatGPT as an enterprise solution, and the risk that that's exposing companies to. I suppose then ChatGPT is then taking away your data, right? And then learning
so
from
not if
that.
you're on the commercial grade, but like if you're going now and using it, it's using your data back into the large language model. So everyone should be aware of that. Don't put your social security number in there. Don't put some of your own personal information into ChatGPT.
Okay, I promise I won't do that. So I just wanted to pick up again. I'm conscious of the time as well. We're getting close, and we've got so many questions that are being asked that we need to speed up a little bit. But I just wanted to pick up on something particularly that Natasha talked about, which was the issue that we're seeing about lack of inclusivity in the design, development, delivery of artificial intelligence, the products that are being created for customers. Typically, we've got one kind of profile of people that are pioneering the technology, designing it, building it, implementing it, and often designing it, which we've got a whole Women in CX LinkedIn live panel debate. If you want to go to YouTube, we talked about that for an hour. But Shamima, I just wanted to bring you in to just think a little bit more about the potential risks of AI-driven CX solutions exacerbating existing inequalities or contributing to the digital divide. Do you want to explain what the digital divide is and give us some pearls of wisdom around avoiding that?
Okay, so notwithstanding the fact that large proportions of populations globally, not just in the UK or the US, continue to lack basic digital skills. These people don't have access to modern information or communications technology as much as everyone thinks that everybody's got an iPhone at the end of their fingertips. That's not really the case. And I think COVID highlighted just how bad and extensive the digital divide was. So certain groups are more likely to be digitally excluded than others, especially when you consider things like age, region that you live, socio-economics of individuals and groups, status, and whether a person has a disability. PwC, because I just wrote down the stat, reported that natural language processing, so NLP, the branch of AI that helps computers to understand and interpret human language, demonstrates often racial, gender, and disability bias. And that's today. So some of the things that we should all be looking at and making sure, because I think, it's what everybody has said, humans have to police this and not just leave programs to run unattended and not managed. So we got to ensure that AI algorithms used in CX solutions are designed with ethical algorithm biases in mind, because the humans that are doing this, have unconscious bias as well as conscious bias. We need to use data to train AI models, and the data sets should be diverse and they should be representative of the target audience. It shouldn't just be from the group that are working with designing or coming up with a solution. And we need to prioritize user-centric design principles, just like Natasha and Gemma have said, to create CX AI solutions that are inclusive. And accessibility, I think accessibility gets overlooked so often, and it should be a top priority, and it should be a significant investment, because it's only by investing in accessibility and then those programs that help to bridge the digital divide, really, and narrow that gap, because we're not going to solve this overnight. It's something that's been ongoing for many, many years.
No, it's totally true, and I totally agree with you. And a lot of the conversations we're having in the community at the moment is about inclusive design, and actually the huge business benefits that can be leveraged when you understand the edges in order to design and develop for the mainstream, because you kind of get that for free if you include everybody in the research and design process.
And that's one of the things I most love about ChatGPT, in that it's made this accessible to everybody, whether you have millions in the bank or you know, a couple of pounds or dollars. And equally, it's the most diverse data set in the history of field trials. And as much as it's unregulated and it's fraught with, you know, danger, let's say, there's also lots of bonuses, because tech companies can only dream of having a field trial of that size and magnitude with such a diverse individuals and teams. So I think it's good.
That's a really good point. So just to bring this to a close before we go to the audience questions, if there's like one piece of advice or takeaway you'd like to leave our audience with today, and you can take it from any angle you wish, what would you say your piece of advice or takeaway would be? We'll start with Ejime.
Thank you. So I'm going to cheat and do two. The first is to, obviously to continue to learn about this technology. There's so many amazing resources. I'm going to plug quick. We now have a whole resource page around generative AI and what this means, how to think about it, and how to move forward with it. And the second, to be quite honest, is to, work with a partner potentially, like even if it's just initial conversation, to some of the things that we talked about. McKinsey just did a big report around how CEOs, and we should all kind of think about ourselves as having to kind of, I think to your point, Gemma, go back to our organizations and start to have these conversations. Like, what is your perspective? McKinsey shared that for many of the applications of this new breed of AI, that with customer service and customer experience in particular, it's one of the areas that companies should actually work with a partner because of the data cleansing, because of the access to systems, because of some of the security and legal risks around doing this. So I would definitely say, start to talk to engaged partners, but don't be afraid of what the power and the potential that the technology has. I think to your point, Natasha, like you either are going to get with it or you're going to get left behind. So, really start to embrace it, but to develop your own point of view.
Great points. And I just saw a little tail pop up on Shabim's. I think that's meaning your cat wants to contribute, or we'll go with you next.
Yeah, I would say evaluate different vendors and conversational AI technologies to find the best fit for your use case, budget, and technical capabilities. And just like Ejime said earlier, center it around the people, processes, and systems.
Nice. Good summary. Natasha, let's have a quick one this time.
All right. So my thing would be is always question how user-centered your services. So if you're using an AI, do you need to go externally to build it out, or do you actually have people in-house that could help you build it out, people that have first-hand experience? Because it's the people that are on the front line that will actually help you build something that's actually user-centered.
Love it. And on that point of making your trials as big as possible in in understanding, I suppose from like a research point of view and a user testing point of view, making sure you've got loads of customer or human involvement in both of those processes. I agree. And Gemma.
And to me, so I'm going to have two as well. The first one is how, not what. It should be, AI should be how you deliver something, but it should be aligned to your purpose. So figure out what that is, work out what your customers need, work out what your agents need, and then figure out where that enables you to do that, rather than being, let's implement AI. And the second thing is the word balance keeps jumping out to me as we're talking, which is about how you balance the technology with the human element. And so that's the thing I'm taking away in terms of, this could be a symbiotic relationship, and it sounds like that there are many use cases where it is, and certainly I've seen some, and I think we just need to think about that balance and understand where the human interaction is needed and where technology can help us deliver a better experience.
Lovely. And I think that this is probably the first in a series of conversations about artificial intelligence, customer experience, technology, and digital transformation, because we only touched the surface really today, didn't we? And there's definitely more discussion to be had. So just going to our audience questions, we have loads. But yeah, if you want to pop up a pause to say whether you want to answer this, and you can choose. one question from Maria de Cambo Ramos is, what are great examples, in your opinion, of how AI can be used to improve B2B CX? Does anyone want to choose that one?
I'll go. So from experience, I would say that there would be two things that come to mind immediately. So I think there's one where it tells us where the journey can be made better. So we did that through conversational AI and intense management and designing bot experiences. But I think that was about recognizing what was a transactional conversation, as we've said, and making sure so that was simple. Somebody, and in our case, it was business owners who were interacting with us. And we looked at and we said, what of these things are really, I want to do it at 8 o'clock at night. I want to do it at, 11 o'clock in the morning, that there was that flexibility. We were able to do that through automating simple transactional experiences. But where there was a human being, we made sure that it was about how we got the customer to that person with as little friction as possible, so that they knew that they had a person who could help them. And then the other place I would say, which I think applies beyond B2B actually, is using AI to look at the insight that you're getting back, the comments from customers, and using that to help you at scale understand what it is customers are telling you, and then feeding that back into your design.
Yeah, and I think that was a question from another LinkedIn user, but I can't see their name, unfortunately. But how do you use AI to gain insights? So that's one example. And I saw Natasha vigorously nodding. Do you have anything to add on that with using AI to generate insights?
Yeah, I think I have friends that have used it to generate insights, because as a user researcher, we go through very long transcripts of text after all of our interviews. And it is a very time-consuming process to code and kind of thematize and kind of look at all your findings. So actually, that is a great way to pull out insights. And also, if you're able to plug in data from kind of like, so say if you're running a service, so pulling out the backend data for the most used journeys or features in your, losing my thread, pulling out the data from what has been used on your website, matching that to the complaints that come through over a certain period of time, and then cross-referencing that with any interviews that you do or any NPS surveys that you do. That's how you can use AI to pull out really, really, really good insights, thus kind of reducing time spent by your analysts and researchers like me. Because the thing is, I see AI as a tool to start from. Like, it's your jumping off point, it's your inspiration point, it's a tool to help you leverage the things that you already have. To Urjume's point from earlier, I do not think AI should be the tool that you use. It should just be a tool in the suite. Yeah, exactly. Just part of your regular tech stack.
Nice. And just to lead on from that, so Emily Sherry is asking, what would you suggest companies that haven't got into the AI space at all yet? Where should they start? And I think you said starting with insights is a good one. Urjume, you're nodding there. Where do you suggest companies who haven't started yet start?
Yeah, I would say, again, echoing Gemma here, start with what problem are you trying to solve, right? And taking a user-led approach. Is it that you are trying to do more with less? Is it that you actually are growing really quickly and you can't grow your costs in the same way? Is it that, your agents are burnt out and you need a way to help make their jobs easier, right? So I would say, start with what problem you're trying to solve. I would also say, start small. I know, even as a vendor and a solution provider, will want to sell you everything sometimes, but start small. The crawl, walk, run approach, even if it's using AI to learn about, well, what intents and what questions should we start to automate. I would definitely say start small, but get started, right? I think a lot of companies now are embracing this technology, and so I would definitely encourage people to start learning more, and hopefully starting pilots before the end of the year as well.
Yes. And then, right. So we've got two really great questions from Serta, but I think we're probably going to have to go back to the chat, as in on LinkedIn. And if you wouldn't mind going and replying to those directly, anyone who watches afterwards will be able to get the answers to Serta's questions, because she's going to ask, how can you each provide an example of how AI is going to change CX in 3 to 5 years? And we've only got 1 minute left, so unfortunately I'm going to be able to answer that. And please, can you name and describe one AI-based service that delivers great CX if you've used one? So maybe everybody who's listening, we will come and contribute to those questions. We'll highlight those ones in the chat. But that's unfortunately all we've got time for today. So I'd just like to say a huge, huge thank you to our panelists, Natasha, Gemma, Shamim, and Ejime. You've been amazing. But a massive, huge thank you to our audience today, who've been amazing in getting involved, asking all the right questions, and really contributing to this conversation. It's been a joy to host this one. So long may these continue. If anyone's interested in finding out more about women in CX or about Quick, Harley will post a link in the comments in the chat now. So just click that link and you can find out more about both of us. And yeah, we'll be back next month for another exciting LinkedIn Live panel. Next month, we're going to be focusing on the topic of pride and inclusion and customer experience, as it is June. But we'll definitely be back with more conversations around artificial intelligence, customer experience and technology, featuring women from the Women in CX community and amplifying their voices and putting women where they should be at the centre of these conversations real soon. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.